not dress for this. The map, the map says, didn't tell me that we were gonna go through snowy mountains. I think I'm lost. There's a cabin. Is it a cabin? I think it's a cabin. I'm gonna go there and see if I can figure out what's going on. Maybe I need to learn how to read a map. Whew. Oh, okay, this cabin is a lot nicer than I thought it would be. There's like quilts everywhere to keep me toasty warm in the winter. Well, I try to figure out where the heck I'm going. Hi, I'm Jenna Hall, and welcome to summer camp. While we're on this crazy adventure, we need a bag to put everything in, so I'm gonna teach you step by step how to make what I call a pack and play bag, and I wrote a pattern and you can download it. The first step to making our quilted bag is to make the quilted panel. You can be fancy with it and do a fun pieced quilt top, but I am just doing 2 pieces of fabric, making it easy peasy. You can quilt it at home using your home sewing machine. If you do, I recommend using a walking foot and it just handles the layers a little bit easier. Or you can use a quilting frame like this one. And today I am using the Q-Zone hoop with the Little Rebel. And what's cool about the Q-Zone hoop is you can replace the Little Rebel right here with your home sewing machine. So you can put your sewing machine on here and be able to quilt your quilts of any size. And when you use a hoop frame like the Q-Zone hoop, you want your backing fabric to be around 8 inches bigger than your quilt top on all sides, except I don't like wasting fabric. I am not a fabric waster. So I like to use a leader cloth that I can pin onto the top and bottom of my backing. That way I have a little bit of extra space, and all you need to do is make a quilt sandwich. Do you guys hear that? It's getting louder. Oh no, oh no, ah! While Jen is dealing with whatever that is, I am gonna give you some tips and tricks for making your quilt sandwich. My first tip and trick is, I don't know about you, but I hate pressing my backing. So I'm just gonna use a little bit of misting, a little bit of water to help the creases relax. And it works perfectly. My second tip is first lay out your backing where the middle of your backing is in the middle of the table. Then with your batting, fold it in half, line it up with the middle of your backing. Then it makes it a little bit easier to baste it. I like using basting spray. You can use clips or whatever you want. But if you're using basting spray, this works great because I can now go and baste one side. And then I can go under and just push the backing out, making sure it's all flat and neat. Perfect. And then I can come back this way and do it to the other side. And then for your top, you're gonna do the same thing. Line up your top in the middle. Just make sure everything is nice and lined up. Basting spray. And then you're just gonna lay it down flat. Let's make sure there's no little bubblies. Then you're gonna repeat that with the other side. And now our quilt sandwich is all basted and ready to be quilted. If you are wanting a little bit more detail on how to put together a quilt sandwich, a little bit more step-by-step instruction, head over to our YouTube channel where we have a couple videos on how to baste your quilt. Now, let's go see how Jen is doing. Hi, you guys, sorry about that. That is a monster yeti. I don't know what it is, but it's white and growly and scary. So let's hurry up and get this done so we can go back onto our adventure to find whatever's at the end of my map. When you're newer to freak motion quilting, one of the questions I get all of the time is, how do you figure out what to quilt? And I like to look at the fabric to figure out what I like. And on these little snails, there are some cute little swirls. So I think I'm gonna go with a swirly vibe. To test out some of my quilting designs, I like to use a piece of plexiglass on top of my quilt, and this allows me just to practice before I commit to a design. So for this guy, we're gonna do some swirls, and I think I am liking this. Ah, I messed up right there. See, this is why I need more practice. Okay, let's quilt this thing out. And what's really nice is on the little Rebel, it comes with a start and stop button that acts as a foot pedal replacer. And if your machine doesn't have that, then we have some on our website. But this just makes it a little bit easier to quilt. So I did the first row and I still have a little bit left to do. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna unhook these little guys. And I'm keeping my needle down in my machine, and I can move this way just a little bit. Perfect. And rehook it. To finish off the rest of this guy. Then all you're gonna do is move this guy up and re-hook everything into place. Reclip everything. And when you clip the top up, all you do is roll your excess fabric up. And then we have little clippies, little bungees that hold everything out of the way. And I like to look underneath, just making sure that everything is nice and flat, there's no little folds, and then I can get quilting my next row. And I just continue that until this whole panel's done. Now that we've got our panel quilted, our next step is to turn it into a perfect circle. So we're gonna find the middle first. And I just did it by folding it in half and then folding it in half again. And then we're gonna take a nice little erasable fabric marker and draw a little tiny dot in the corner. That way we know where our middle is. Our next step is to turn this into a circle, kind of the old-fashioned way. We're gonna draw it out using a piece of string and a heat erasable pen or whatever marking device you want. Our panel is 42 by 42, half of that is 21, so we want to make sure that this is 21 inches. Once you found that 21-inch mark, you can grab a pin and you're going to put it into the center mark of your panel that you drew earlier, and then you can tie a knot, and now you've got your center mark. Now we're going to do a little marking point at all four sides of the panel, and so I'm just going to pull it as far as it goes. We're gonna do a little mark over here, pull it this way, do a little mark over here, Do a little mark right here. Move it down this way. And do a little mark right here. Perfect. Now we're gonna pull our string a little bit tight and draw a little half circle from one mark to the next. Start at the little mark you drew. And if your panel does not reach 21 inches in the middle, from the middle out on the side, that's okay. This pattern is super easy where you can make it really whatever size you want. We're gonna do this all the way around until we have a circle. After you've drawn out your circle, you can take your pin out, move those to the side, and now all you need to do is cut this out. Boom, circle. I wonder if there's an easier way to make a circle. If you don't want to use a string attached to a pen to make a perfect circle, because let's be honest, will it be a perfect circle? The world will never know. You can always use the TrueCut 360 circle cutter. The circle cutter makes perfect circles with diameters anywhere from 2 to 12.5 inches, and it's super easy to use. And let me show you how. First, you are going to turn the knob to figure out how big you want your circle. I want my circle to be 5 inches. So I'm gonna line it up with the 5-inch mark. And I'm gonna turn it to secure it. I'm gonna make sure the safety is off. So perfect. And with the circle cutter, there is a blade that is right here. Ooh, the safety is on the blade, so let's take that off. It's super easy to take your safety off. Close it down. I'm gonna line up the little knob in the middle of my fabric. Press that down. I'm gonna reach around, press this side down. Now I'm gonna do one swoop all the way around and ta-da! It's the perfect circle. Look how fun that is. And if you wanted to, you could do a smaller circle inside that circle. Let's say I want a 3-inch circle inside there. Perfect. I'm gonna line it up in the middle. I'm gonna go around. And ta-da! Look at the little circle and a little donut circle. The circle cutter comes with one blade, and when that blade gets a little bit dull, we have additional blades on our website that you can order. Are you feeling inspired yet? If you're craving more fun projects, free patterns, and helpful resources, head over to our Grace Company YouTube channel. Over the past year, we've been working so hard to create fun, engaging content for quilters of all levels. From basic product support videos and beginner tutorials to creative challenges and inspiring projects, there's something for literally everybody. Some of my personal favorites are my American flag quilt block tutorial, which comes with a free pattern, and I just think it's so fun. And Angelique's Free Motion Basics series, where she just breaks down free motion quilting to be super approachable for beginners. She's a genius, and I love her. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any new content coming your way. And let me show you some sneak peeks of some videos that are coming up that I'm so excited about. This month, we're launching a brand new series called Jenna Tries, where I try quilting and sewing techniques that I've never done before, and every video is a new technique, a new thing. And in this first video, I'm making a quilt as you go rag quilt. It's chaos and fabric and a whole lot of fun. We're also doing some color challenges with Angelique, and she is taking on her first color challenge using 2 randomly selected finesse thread colors, and she ended up drawing French blue and made the cutest little beret. You'll have to watch her video because it's so adorable. And to close out the month, I will be showing you 3 different ways to bind a quilt. And with all of these videos, we have free downloadable resources and patterns for you so that you can make all of these fun things at home.
We've been working so hard behind the scenes for you,
And we're so excited to share it with you.
so grab your sewing machine
And your snacks. So head over to the Grace Company YouTube channel.
We release videos every Wednesday and
Friday! So don't forget to subscribe.
subscribe.
And we'll see you there. The next step of our bag is making some binding to finish off these edges, and because it is a curved bag, we're gonna make some bias binding. And I know that bias binding can seem really intimidating, but making bias binding is a lot easier than you think. If you don't like the way I do it, there are so many different ways to do it. This is just one of the ways. First, I'm gonna start with a 23-inch square, and we need to cut a diagonal line through this square. I'm gonna fold it diagonally. Then I'm gonna line up the edge of the ruler along that fold. And then we're just gonna cut right down the middle. Now we've got two open parts, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna sew these together, but I wanna sew this top part onto this bottom part of our square. And I wanna make sure there is a 1/4 inch of overlap on both sides. Now you have a giant trapezoid, and you can either choose to press your seams open or to the side. I like to press them open so that it's a little less bulky. Now we are going to fold the tops, like the points of our trapezoid, back over each other to create a square. And I'm trying to line it up with that middle seam. And it's okay if it's not perfect. Just good enough. Now we're gonna cut this into as many 2.5-inch strips that it will make. Now we've got 6 strips, and we are going to sew them together on this diagonal seam that we created, this 90-degree angle. You wanna make sure to overlap the end points of your binding by a 1/4 inch, and then we're gonna sew all of these together. Finish off our bias binding, we're gonna finish it off like traditional binding by pressing this entire strip in half. Our next step is to sew this bias binding onto our circle piece. And we're gonna do it like you would normal binding. The only difference is as you sew, there's gonna be a slight curve, but the fabric will naturally move towards that curve just because it's bias binding. That's why we made it. First, you are gonna leave a 6 to 8-inch tail at the top of your binding, and this is where we'll connect it later. Then we can start sewing at the end of that 6 inches, right, or 8 inches. And then we're just gonna sew this guy all the way around and stop when we get around 10 inches from this little guy. I stopped sewing my binding around, this is way more than 10 inches, but that's okay. This is a little bit extra, and we like a little bit extra, around a foot before the end. And now we're gonna sew our pieces together, and here's how you're gonna do that. You're gonna lay the strip you started sewing first, the beginning strip, down first, then you're gonna lay the other guy on top. And because our binding is 2.5 inches, I'm gonna measure from the tip of this guy 2.5 inches. There we go. And really 2.5 inches is where this guy ends right here. Now, to connect these two, I like to first scrunch up and pin back my quilt just so that I can move these a little bit closer together. This piece I'm gonna open up first where the fabric, the right side is facing me. Then I'm gonna open up this piece, make sure right sides are together, and we're gonna layer these perpendicularly. And because this guy's already cut at a 90-degree angle, we're just gonna overlap the corner of this piece and the end of this piece by 1/4 inch. And the same for up top, you should see 1/4 inch of the bottom piece sticking out. Then just to make this a little bit easier for me and to hold everything together, I'm gonna pin it. Now we are gonna sew a diagonal line down this guy. Before you cut anything, I have made this mistake in the past where things get twisted. So before you cut, fold it back, make sure that nothing is twisted. Then you are going to trim this guy by 1/4 inch. Do a nice little finger press. Then you can fold it back over and sew down the rest of it. We have the binding on one side, but now we need to fold it over so that the binding finishes off our raw edge and is connected on the other side. First, I'm going to press all of the binding so that it is out. Now we're going to fold our binding on top of that raw edge, and you can either clip it, but I like to glue based. I use just plain old Elmer's glue, and it washes out. Let me show you my little trick. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put little stripes of glue. I don't want a whole lot of glue, like just barely any, along the edge of the quilt. And I'm trying not to get close to my stitches because sewing through glue isn't super fun. Then when I fold the top part over, I wanna make sure it's overlapping my stitch line by 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to overlap it by 1/8 of an inch. And then the heat of my iron will dry the glue and everything is basted. I love glue basting because it prevents everything from shifting. In the comments, tell me what your favorite way of basting down binding or putting down binding is. Are you a fan of glue? Are you not a fan of glue? And then I'm just going to repeat this process all the way around. Sew our binding down. If you're a fan of hand binding, you can do that, but with bags, I don't typically like to hand bind because I know there's just gonna be more wear and tear to it. You could either do a stitch in the ditch, or you can do what I'm gonna do, just because I like the look of it, is I like to sew 1/8 of an inch in from the edge of that binding. So then you see the stitches on the binding on both sides. So all you're doing is sewing 1/8 of an inch in from the edge. That is on both sides. And I'm just gonna do this until this whole thing is stitched on. Our back panel is finished, and I'm gonna be honest, this is probably what is gonna take you the longest. Now it's just smooth sailing from here, but can you see the vibe of it where it's a play mat here? Well, technically it's gonna be this way. Can you see the vibe where it's a play mat and then it all scrunches up to be a cute little bag, and then you can take it and go to the beach and you put it down with all of your stuff in the middle, and then you put it back up. Ooh, I'm so excited.
So, when do you use traditional binding versus bias binding? Traditional quilt binding is typically cut on the straight grain of the fabric and works well for quilts with straight edges. It's quicker to prepare and uses less fabric. Bias binding, on the other hand, is cut at a 45-degree angle of the fabric's grain, giving it stretch and flexibility, making it ideal for quilts with curves, scallops, or rounded corners. While bias binding takes more time and fabric, it lays smoother on irregular shapes and holds up better over time with frequent use or washing. Use straight binding for most square or rectangular quilts, and bias binding when curves are involved.
Our back panel is officially done, and from here it is smooth sailing. We have got to now make our loops, and the loops is what the cord is gonna go through so it can be like a drawstring and all come up, right? So we're gonna make something called double fold binding. For the loops, we want 2.5 strips of fabric, and you're gonna start by pressing your strip in half so that you know where that middle line is. Then we are gonna fold in both raw edges so that they meet in the middle, and then you fold it back over itself and you press that together. And it's as easy as that. There are devices that make it a little bit easier to make double fold binding, but you don't necessarily need them. They are a big help for sure, but you can just do it this way too. It's not too bad. Now we are going to sew 1/8 of an inch in on either side of this tape. This guy is so fast. I love it. Now we're going to cut this guy down into 2.5 inch little pieces. So I'm going to cut on this side, make a straight pace. 2.5 inches. And we need 20 of these pieces. Now we're going to take our 22.5 inch strips and we are going to fold them in half and base them like 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. And the final part to making these loops is pressing them so that the seam is in the middle and it's on the outside. I'm just pressing these seams to the side. It is finally time to attach our loops onto our main panel piece, and we want our loops on the outside of the bag. I'm going to start by placing my loops in the middle of each of the 4 sides, and then I'm going to put 4 loops in between each of those sections. When you put your loop down, again, I am going to glue base because I love it. I'm going to measure from the edge of the binding 2 inches down. Then I'm going to put a little glue dot on the back of my guy. If you want to pin it, you can. And then I'm going to place the loop 2 inches down from the edge of the binding. Our first loop is basted, and you're going to repeat that process for the rest of the loops, making sure they're 2 inches down from the edge. Now I got to sew on these loops, and we are going to stitch 1/8 of an inch in from the top and bottom of the loop, and you want to make sure to backstitch just because these are going to be used often and it's going to be what's pulled on the most, so you want to make sure that they are super secure. And because there are so many loops to sew on, and I don't know about you, but I hate having to cut my thread all of the time, I am just going to keep sewing until all the loops are sewed on. Then I'm going to go and cut my threads in between afterwards. And now we got to make the cord that goes inside the loops that makes it a drawstring bag. You guys hear that? I think the Yeti's coming back. So we got to hurry up and finish this. Okay, we just have to make the cord, add the handles, and make the cord stopper, and then we'll be done and we'll get out of here before that little monster comes back and tries to get me.
The Yeti is still lurking, and Jenna is about to get into a lot of trouble. The Yeti, also known as the Abominable Snowman, is a legendary creature said to roam the snowy mountains of the Himalayas. Described as a large ape-like being covered in white or gray fur, it's been a part of local folklore for centuries. A fun fact, in 1951, a British explorer found large footprints in the snow near Mount Everest, sparking global fascination. While no one's ever proven the Yeti exists, the mystery continues to inspire stories, movies, and expeditions to this day. Let's cross our fingers that Jenna makes it out of these mountains with all her limbs.
make your long cord that goes around the bag, you're basically gonna do the same thing that you did to make the loops, doing this double fold binding, except you're gonna do it with 4 2.5-inch strips. Your first step is to sew all of your strips together using a diagonal seam. The main difference with making the cord is you're gonna fold in both ends of the double fold binding by like 1/4 to 1/2 inch. No exact science, just to hide those raw edges. So I'm gonna cut that off. I'm gonna open this guy up, fold it in. I'll just press it a little bit. I'm gonna fold it in one more time. Fold it back over itself. Give it a nice press. And then I like to use a little clip to secure the end. Now we're gonna sew the side that has the 2 ends that meet together using an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And you're gonna wanna start at the top and go boop, then boop, and then sew all the way till you get to the bottom, and then sew back across to close out all of those edges. Our cord is finished and it's super long, and I forgot to tell you earlier, but you want to cut it down to be a total of 137 inches long. Now we got to make the cord stopper. The last thing we're going to make is the cord stopper, and we're going to start with a 3-inch by 3 1/4-inch piece of fabric. And I have put interfacing on this, so some SF 101, just so that it's a little bit sturdier. There's some structure to it. First, you are going to fold it in half this way, and then we're gonna sew that together using a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Now we are gonna turn this guy right side out, and I like to use a safety pin. And we are gonna go in and out of the edge a couple of times, and I'm only going through one side of it. Then I can take this end and poke it down inside my little tube and pull the edge. And you just keep pulling until you turn everything out. And we are gonna press this so that the seam is in the middle. Now the seam is in the middle, and now we're gonna fold it in half again, making sure the seam is on the outside, and we're gonna stitch this together. 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. I am just gonna trim this down by like an 1/8 of an inch, just leaving a little bit left over. And now we're gonna turn this guy right side out. So now we got a tube, and again, we're gonna make sure to press it so that this seam is in the middle. And now I am gonna sew a line right down the middle where that seam is, and it's gonna create 2 tube sections so that we can put the end of our cord into each of those sections. And our cord stopper is done. Now we just have to add on our handles, and then we're basically finished. Ah! I am using webbing. You can make your handles if you want, but I find this a little bit easier, and this is 32 inches long. First, you're gonna find the center of your bag on both ends and mark it, and I already did that. I marked it with a pin on both sides. This is where a fabric marking tool comes in handy. To place your handles, you're gonna go 2.5 inches from the middle of your panel, and then 5 inches down. And before I clip this into place, I want to fold the edge of my webbing up by about 1 inch. So I'm just gonna make sure that's about 1 inch, perfect. And that's just hiding that raw edge. Do that 5 inches. And then I'm going to pin this into place. Just make sure. And then after one side's done, you're gonna repeat that on the other side. You're then gonna repeat this on the other side. Now we're gonna secure these guys down by first doing a box and then doing an X in that box. And you want your box to be 2 inches from the edge of the handle. So I'm just gonna mark where that 2-inch mark is. And now we're gonna sew them on. Again, we're gonna make a box first and then fill it in with an X. You got your box and your X, and we're gonna do that to all of our handles. Look how cute these handles are. I can barely even stand it. Okay, all of our parts are done. Now we just gotta put them together. To attach the cording, I find it a little bit easier to stick it through the loops if it's attached to a safety pin. And now I'm just gonna thread this guy through the middle of all of my loops. And I'm starting in between my handles, but you really can do wherever you want. You can start wherever you want. After you've threaded about 4 of the loops, you want to stop and pull your cord through until you have around a foot left just hanging. While I'm threading this, I need you to tell me if you were to be deserted anywhere, where would it be? Because I certainly hate the cold. I despise the cold. It is my least favorite thing. Well, actually, maybe the heat's my least favorite thing, but the cold is my second least favorite thing. So being stuck here in the mountains is not on my bucket list, I will say that. But in the comments, let me know where you would want to be deserted, or if you don't want to be deserted anywhere, which I don't think any of us do, let me know where is your least favorite spot to be deserted, or like where would you not want to be? Now I gotta thread the loops through each side of the cord stopper. And our last step is to take these 2 pieces and tie them into a knot so that the cord stopper doesn't come out and you know where the end of your thing is. Guess what? Our bag is done. So now let's put it to use. I'm gonna flip it to the other side, and I don't know if you've noticed, but in this abandoned cabin, there are tons of quilts, and I gotta stay warm in the middle of winter as I try to find this freaking treasure. So I'm gonna maybe just take some of these quilts to keep me warm. Let's see this bag in action. It is so cold outside, so I'm gonna pack myself a quilt, and I think I need some rotary cutters just in case the Yeti comes after me, so we're gonna put those in there too. And I'm gonna take my little cord, I'm gonna pull it so that it's tight. And then I can use this cord stopper to tighten that guy up. I'll take the leftover of this and kind of just stick it in the middle. And you got a super cute bag. Then when you need to go anywhere, all you have to do is loosen this bag up, and this guy turns back into a mat. When I was designing this bag, I wanted it to be perfect for a day at the beach where you could just throw all your stuff in the middle, scrunch it up, and let it all loose whenever you need to. For a picnic, playing at the park, for a baby, you can put all the toys in the middle, and then it turns into a play mat. If you want the pattern for this bag, make sure to head to our website, and when you make it and post it on social media, make sure to tag us. We want to see it. But for now, I gotta get going because I can hear this Yeti coming. So let's see where we're going. Oh. Y'all, I was holding this upside down the entire time. Okay, I know exactly what I'm doing, but I can hear this Yeti. So let's pack this baby up. I hope you have a great summer camp and wish me luck.